All right, here we go. It has been a while. For those of you that don't know, the last 5 months or so, I have been on military orders doing additional training for my cyber background that I'm working on full time. So, having podcast episodes has been pretty much on full hold and will continue to be off and on as we go. But there's been something on my mind, especially since I've gotten back and been back at home. And I was trying to really deep dive into okay, so how do I, as an individual who is jumping into a new career field in cybersecurity, really stand out against other individuals in the competition? And so I started thinking, I went, okay, so I don't have a ton of technical background, but I have a ton of soft skills. I have a high EQ, which we'll talk about what that truly is. And I went, so how can I utilize soft skills and EQ in cybersecurity, and why does that matter? So, long story short, did a poll on LinkedIn, and I asked everybody, what is the one thing that you're missing in cybersecurity that you want to see in your employees and your businesses? Because I didn't want to give any feelers to try to make people go a certain direction. So I just left it wide open. And every single person said the exact same thing. It was communication with the customer, or having soft skills and being able to have empathy and really communicate where somebody has issues and how you remediate those issues in cybersecurity. So that got me thinking. I went, okay, so soft skills are extremely important, and having emotional intelligence is extremely important. And why is that? So tonight, I kind of want to go through a couple of those things and really hit home on a few examples. And we'll talk about a scenario with toxic employees. And I'm sure everybody has worked with somebody that has been toxic, and or you have been toxic yourself. I want to go through a second scenario of a customer service experience, both good and bad, that I've had, and why the soft skills and EQ played a role in those scenarios. And lastly, I want to talk about really what are those two things and why are they important, and how can you as an individual really figure out where your weak points are and hone in on your strengths as well. And then also, as an employer or as somebody that's trying to find a candidate, and you really don't know how to figure out if somebody is the right fit culturally or if they have the right soft skills, that is going to be something we go through as well. And what kind of questions you really ask in a pre-interview screening or during an interview. So I got notes. As always, I like to kind of do this on the fly. I like to have a little background and go from there. So we're going to start right now. So the first thing is, what are soft skills and what is EQ or emotional intelligence? So everybody's going to have a little different definition of this. Mine is, it's an insight. Soft skills are an insight into an individual's way of thinking. It's their attitude towards any given scenario that's presented to them, and it's their motivations and their actions. So what does that really mean? Soft skills, I actually have a couple of graphs that I'll post after this. And when you look at these online, you're going to go, okay, so what are soft skills? I'm going to read off to you guys the top 10 most important soft skills that recruiters and hiring managers said were important in 2020. So this is pretty recent. 1, teamwork. 57% of people said teamwork was huge. Second, communication, 55%. Third was time management, problem solving, and then it goes down from there. So when you're thinking of soft skills, teamwork, communication, time management, problem solving, creativity, leadership, your organizational skills, your emotional intelligence, decision making, stress management, these are all skill sets that you see on job applications or that you don't see in job applications. And why is that? Well, it's hard to quantify soft skills, right? Like, you can't just go, oh yeah, you need X, Y, and Z. Oh, here's your certificate for this soft skill. You can't really do that, right? The one thing that was really surprising with this top 10 is teamwork and communication are the top two. That does not surprise me at all, and we'll go through why. The one that surprised me was number 8 out of 10 was emotional intelligence, and that was only at 33% versus 57 for teamwork. And in my opinion, emotional intelligence plays a role in every single soft skill that you can possibly have. We'll also go through that, trying to keep this below 30 minutes. So I want to go through a few scenarios because that's really going to help us hone in on this. I like stories, so we're going to go from there. So the first one is the story of toxic coworkers. And John, hey, how are you, sir? Nice to see you. But toxic coworkers. So we all know somebody in the workplace that just brings everybody else down. So I wanted to talk about soft skills and how that's related to toxicity or how you react in a workplace. So first of all, I have worked with coworkers in the past. There has been one in particular. I'm never going to give out names or anything. But I had a job out of college, and I had a coworker that was hired on at a job roughly the same time as me in the same role. And we both were doing our jobs, we both did them well, and about 3 to 6 months into the job, we had our boss who was overseeing over 200 people in this shop and just left. No 2 week notice, no nothing. And we went, okay, so what do we do? So I'm going to my boss going, hey, how can I help? What can we do? And picked up some slack where I could. Long story short, I ended up getting a promotion off of that, and the other individual didn't. The other individual also found out what I was getting paid when we were in the same role. And long story short, it created toxicity. So the individual started to resent me, started to resent the company, and started to have the poor me, woe is me attitude. And then that started to go into a downward spiral from there. So when you look at soft skills and why that's related to this story, nobody wants to be around an individual who constantly thinks that people are out to get them, somebody that thinks they have the victim mentality, the woe is me, and somebody that is constantly talking about the negative side of things, right? So attitude is extremely important, and believe it or not, that is a soft skill. I fell into this trap when I was younger. So before I actually went to boot camp and enlisted in the military, before I actually got baptized and kind of changed my life over to Jesus and really got into being a follower of Christ again, I was very negative. Anything bad that happened, I wanted to talk about it all the time, and I begrudged people because of that. And at the time, I didn't really realize how that was impacting the people around me. Even though I was overall a pretty positive person, I started to see that. And then once I got out of boot camp, and you have a lot of time to think in boot camp, right? I started to realize that I was in that kind of position, and I changed that mindset. So I started to look at everything as being grateful for something. So yeah, life isn't perfect, stuff happens, but I started to have more of a gratitude mindset. I started to really thank people for their help whenever they did help me, because people want to help other people inherently. And so I wanted to make sure that I could be that positive energy for everybody around me, because life is too short to go any other way, right? So that was a big issue. So soft skills, when you think about attitude and stress management, how do you manage your stress? Are you coping with alcohol and doing a whole bunch of crazy partying, or are you trying to find other ways that are positive, like going into a game and just getting playing video games or working out? That's a big one I like to do. I work out every day. That's how I get my stress out. Or if I want to, one of the things I saw was one of the authors. They write when they're angry, because writing allows them to get their thoughts out. So how you manage stress, that's in the top 10 most important soft skills. And the other one on that is emotional intelligence. So with emotional intelligence, are you able to really have self-awareness? So I want to pull up another graph here that I'm looking at. And again, I'm going to post all of these in the links here. But I think this is extremely important to point out. So we talk about emotional intelligence. It's your ability to understand and manage your own feelings and the people around you. So it's also your ability to be able to read other people's feelings and realize how you need to react and adjust course based on that person at that time. That is an extremely important skill set to have. And we'll talk about why in the cybersecurity world, because I want to hit on cybersecurity and where they're missing EQ and soft skills. But 80 to 90% of the competencies that differentiate top performers are in the domain of emotional intelligence. So this is actually a statistic. 80 to 90% of top performers have a higher EQ than anybody else. So that's self-reflection, that's self-soothing, so that's your ability to cope under stress, and empathy. So empathy is extremely important. So we talk about a lot about empathy in today's society, but I want to hit on it in the respect of, you have to be able to understand somebody else's scenario. And it doesn't mean you have to agree with it. It doesn't mean you have to bend over and go, oh, you're right. But it's your ability to really understand where somebody else is coming from and to adjust your reaction and your course based on that, because everybody has different experiences. So you can't just assume something because of your own lens that you have. So that's a huge deal. So 5 characteristics of emotionally intelligent people. So think about this as I read these, if this is something that you have. They aren't afraid of change or taking a risk. I know that's kind of hard for some people. Some people do not like taking risks, and I'll tell you what, if you don't step outside your comfort zone, you're never going to grow. And I actually had an argument with somebody on this. When are people growing the most? When are they actually, in terms of their maturity level, growing? And it's in times of pain, times of, you know, and I mean, you talk about it in sports all the time. It's like, well, adversity. How do we overcome adversity? When you're winning all the time, you're not growing. When you lose and you have to adapt and you have to really reflect, that's when you're growing. I need coffee. It's late at night, guys. So, being self aware, don't let weaknesses hold you back. They know what they're feeling. So, you know what your weaknesses are. So, do you ever write anything down and go, hey, this is where I'm lacking, this is where I'm doing well, and really hone in on where you need to improve as an individual? 3, empathetic, can relate to others. We just discussed this. So this is a big characteristic of emotionally intelligent people, is are they able to read the person in front of them? One of the things that was huge for me in sales was I had to sit down. Whenever I sat down with somebody in front of me, I had to get their life story in less than 20 minutes and be able to help. I had to change my posture and my attitude based on the person that was in front of me. So if it was somebody extremely type A that was high strung, I had to be pretty, blunt and to the point, and I had to be straightforward with them because they appreciate that. If it was somebody that wanted to tell me their life story and they were crying, and trust me, there have been times that happened, then I was really empathetic, and I tried to relate to that and understand where they were coming from, and I just sat and listened. So you have to change your personality based on the person that's in front of you to help the entire conversation go more smoothly. 4, you're balanced. You know how to maintain balance and practice self-care. This is important, and I think everybody's starting to realize that in today's society, is that you have to have a balance of some sort. So you have to figure out how you get your daily mentality you're growing in, how you get your exercise in, how much sleep you get, make sure you're working hard when you are actually at work. So that's a big deal. Last, number 5 is gracious. Oh, wow. I didn't even read this beforehand. Glass half full mentality, and they feel good about their lives. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. Gratitude will change your life around completely. So this is all fun and dandy and cool, but the question is, why is that important? And as somebody that's interviewing, how do you even try to figure out if a person can, what they have for soft skills? So again, going through the top 10 soft skills, communication and teamwork. How do you know if somebody has qualities of teamwork? How do you know if somebody can communicate effectively? How do you know if they're good at time management or problem solving? So I actually have a link on the video. You guys should be able to see it. So that's my first time actually doing a link, so hopefully you can find it. But there is a link to the website toggle.com. So I just thought these guys sent some pretty good questions on here. So if you go on that website, there are questions for each section of soft skills. And you can do this in a pre-interview questionnaire, or you can do this during the interview. I like getting people on the spot right in front of me. And I like being put on the spot because then it's more real. So we'll just do teamwork and communication quick. Tell me about yourself in 2 sentences. That's a good one. Use up to 5 sentences to sell me a pencil. And then they have, this is the one I like the most for cybersecurity. So for those of you that are watching this in cybersecurity, if you've even gotten this far, explain to your 95-year-old grandmother what you do for a living. So let's change gears a little bit. We're going to change gears a little bit. Keep that one in mind here in a second. And then we'll go to teamwork. How important are team events for you? Tell me how you would overcome a situation where a team is doing badly because members aren't getting along. I love questions that have adversity and hard scenarios in them, because you really see somebody's character and their soft skills when they're in a scenario that's bad or going wrong. So extremely important. So you have all these questions in interviews that you can ask to and I like what if scenarios. So tell me about a time when. There's always questions on tell me about a time when that you can ask during an interview to really gauge somebody's personality. And then you just have to do it with the gut feel. So when you talk to someone, one of the references in my LinkedIn post, thank you for that, was they said, do I feel like I could have a beer with this person? So what does your gut feeling say? Do you feel like they have the skill sets that are required in order to fulfill the function within the culture of your job? So all of of these are important. Check those out when you get a sec. So we're going to switch gears though into cybersecurity and why this is extremely important. So when I did the poll that I did on LinkedIn, every single person talked about how they needed people that were good at communicating with customers and people that were able to have empathy and have these communication skills, because a lot of cybersecurity workers are extremely technically proficient because that's what they were told to do. You need to get XYZ certs, which I'm working on as well, right? We have to do it, and I love the knowledge. But you also have to have the soft skills, because if you're somebody that's technically proficient, but you can't explain to a customer at their level why things are going on within their networks that are going on the way they are and how you need to mitigate those issues and remediate them and fix them, if you can't communicate that effectively while making sure that you don't completely piss them off by saying the wrong things, then you're not going to get anywhere in your business, and then you're not going to get a return customer base or referrals, which is extremely important. We all need to make money, including cybersecurity. Your end customer is extremely important. So how do you talk to them about that? So this has been a big thing on my mind. So we go through that. So we need to talk a little bit about EQ if we're going to talk about this. So EQ, what is EQ? It's your ability to understand, use, and manage your own emotions and positive stress relief and how to communicate effectively. So interpersonal skills are big. Reading others is big. Then self-regulation, self-awareness is huge. So the one thing I like to do when it concerns with communication, because I think communication is probably the most important thing, is you have to be able to figure out the person in front of you first before you even start talking with that person. So for example, when I sat down with clients in the fitness world, the first thing I did was let them talk. I kept my mouth shut the entire time. So I went, tell me a little bit about yourself. Why are you here today? So same thing with clients in cybersecurity. The very get-go, you need to set expectations early. So tell me about what you guys want us to accomplish and why. Okay, great. Tell us the parameters of how you want us to utilize pen testing this network, if that's what you're doing, if you're penetration testing on a network, etc. And you need to set out those expectations and those guidelines right away, clear cut. You also need to know the people that you're going to be directly communicating with, what is their background and how proficient are they technically, because you need to know that in order to change at what level you're speaking at. You don't want to speak way above somebody, but you also don't want to speak way below somebody and then they think that you think they're an idiot and now you look bad. So knowing the people that you're working with and what proficiency level they're currently at is going to be a big deal. Secondly, what is that individual like when you talk to them? Are you able to build rapport with that person? Because believe it or not, building rapport with somebody, especially at the beginning of a project, is probably important. You know, going out to lunches, getting to know what they like, making sure that you build some sort of common ground. And then whoever is doing that has to be technically proficient enough also to be able to explain what's going on once you actually start doing penetration testing on a network or whatever you're doing with your end customer at that point in time. So this was something that has been extremely hard for a lot of people, is soft skills, and it's not something that's quantifiable. So it has to be something that you ask questions about early on in the pre-interview. You can do a written test, and then you can also do that in the interview questions like I talked about. But the biggest thing from an individual's point of view and perspective, this is big for me in my personal life, was the self-reflection part. Is I try to be proactively communicative with my wife all the time. So we have a calendar set up to know exactly where we're going to be, when we're going to be there, so that way there's no, oh, well, I thought you were doing this. Oh, well, I thought you were going to pick up the kids. I thought you were going to pick up the kids. And that creates drama and it causes fights. So always trying to be proactive with our communication, and the teamwork's big. There's give and take. So at your job, or if you're with your relationship in your personal life, are you giving some and taking some? So are you basically going, hey, you know what? Like, for example, for me, I hate doing laundry. I hate doing the dishes. Absolutely despise doing both. Our dishwasher just broke down a week and a half ago. We have no dishwasher. Guess who's doing dishes now to help out, because I don't want my wife to be unhappy that I'm watching her clean all the dishes by hand all the time. And same with at work. If you say you're not busy in a day or two and you realize somebody else has a really heavy workload, go over to him and be like, hey, is there anything I can help with, Bob? What do you need? I'm here to support. These small little gestures of teamwork, soft skill right there, will make you look so much better. And you should just do it out of the kindness of your heart because you're not a bad person. Kind of like my book, Don't Be a You Know What. So these are all concepts in the book that I talk about, except for I go into a lot of detail with graphs and all that fun stuff for those of you that like graphs. But this is important. And then with the communication, the biggest thing is knowing how the other person's feeling, looking at their nonverbals. And this is same with your end clients. So when, for example, when I worked in the fitness world, I would watch individuals' posture, not only their posture and their stance, but their nonverbals on their face. I would watch how they were reacting to our conversation and what we were talking about. If I didn't get a good feel from it, I would try to let them talk more and let them guide the conversation a little bit more and try to really figure out what their deep core needs were, because it was obvious to me if that happened that I wasn't addressing those core needs and I needed to adjust course. So that is a huge deal as well. But that's not something that comes overnight. You have to practice this and you have to be able to be open to feedback. So another thing that's really important with this is feedback. Are you willing to take feedback constructively and really look at yourself internally and go, oh, okay, yeah, I can see that. I can see how I could change something here to make this better. So kind of taking this all full circle now. And if you have questions as you guys watch this, either tonight or later on, let me know, because I'm more than happy to have dialogue after this video is done and posted on everywhere. But I want to go ahead and go through the recap of everything. So soft skills and EQ. From a employer's perspective, because I had this specific question from a few individuals, as an employer or an interviewer, how do you really ask these type of things without making it feel really obvious or without having bias? And these questions on toggle.com are perfect. Being able to just ask scenario-based questions that dive into how a person reacts. You will start to notice when you ask enough questions that you'll find trends. You'll find trends in somebody's personality. And then you can really, without them even knowing that they're giving it to you, find out about that person and a lot of their habits, whether they're good or bad, and if they fit the culture for your company. And from a personal perspective, you have to kind of look internally and go, okay, so where are my strengths? Where are my weaknesses? And make sure you write when you find things. And it could happen throughout the day. You can go, oh man, I looked back at that scenario yesterday when I was mad at my kids. I really did not act the way I should have, and I need to change and do this. Write that down. And then you can you reference back to it later. So it's just something that's continually going and you're just continually growing from. So my question for everybody else is, and I have this in the link there too, is what do you feel is the most important skill set that somebody can have for a soft skill, and why? So what I want everybody to do, if you've made it to this point, is just comment on what you feel is the best soft skill. We'll create dialogue and conversation out of this, and also what you want more skill, what you want more knowledge on a soft skill that can help improve upon. So if you have things you want to improve upon, you just don't know where to start, also put that in the comments or shoot me a note and go from there. John, by the way, I am extremely impressed that you stayed through this whole thing. I'm going to try to keep my videos shorter now so it's not crazy long, like an hour and a half. In the IT career field, these questions. Good. I'm glad they're becoming more prevalent, because I've talked to a lot of guys that work on the military side, and they've never seen this before in the past, and they've never really, I guess, tried to gauge people on soft skills. So, and I think it's extremely important, especially now that I'm in that field. So, by the way, John was one of my clients over when I was in the fitness world. Amazing dude. That's Steyert. Steyert, I worked with Steyert. Sorry, wrong John. But yeah, that's when we were in 177th. But yeah, that's a huge deal in the IT career field. Yeah, an effective team. Teamwork is huge. You have to be willing to work with others. But yeah, guys, go ahead and put that on there, and we'll do some dialogue and go from there. I'm just glad to be back home and be back on videos. If you have any other topics you want me to talk on that we can go through, let me know. We'll go from there. You guys have a great night.